This is your corner on Fifth. A very good morning to you on this 6th day of February. We are live. I've got Lydia on the other side of the microphone. Good morning to you, Lydia.
Good morning, dear Father.
Okay, Father, dear Father, I trust you've had some good sleep and your little one has gone off to school this morning, so you have just a little free time. So thank you for joining us. For those of you who have joined us on the Fifth Connection, we are looking at this fractal trajectory, this path of flight for transformation, for change in our lives, in service to assessing each other's growth stages. We discussed in our last episode that we are constantly checking each other out, listening for cues, watching body posture, eye movement, and the like, in order to assess how we need to respond to each other. So, this is not a secret game that we play. Uh, we, in our marriages, we constantly checking each other out. How was your day? And of course, dear husband would just mumble something. He's had a tough day. Or maybe the wife would just not say anything. But we are constantly checking each other out. And so we looked at the first one. The first thing we need to develop is to be the ability to detect fallacious thinking or false logic. And there are tons of errors that we make in logic, just tons of them. They are innumerable. We discover them every single day, we discover a new one. And we looked at the ad hominem argument, how that when we can't win an argument, we attack the person. If I can't win with my partner, I attack my partner. Now, that sounds very brutal, but that's exactly what we do because we can't get our way, right? Kids do that with parents, and parents return the favor. So we must be able to detect false thinking, missteps in our mental capacity or mental framing. But today we want to look at number 2, to develop an appreciation and a tolerance for complexity. An appreciation for tolerance for complexity and tolerance for complexity. Lydia, how does that strike you as you hear that, as you listen to that?
Yeah, I think what it brings up is a quick illustration when we're talking about dynamics and how we used to think through. And I remember you sharing an example of saying to us, through life's journeys and trying to make decisions. And it was how you used to say to us, you have to learn how to navigate the gray. And I love that. I use that, when I was teaching, when I was talking to people, because initially for me, I think I tried to make things very black and white, right? You feel if you can categorize things and put them in boxes, then you can sort through things and think through things and respond to things. But actually, even life shows you it's about watching those minefields and you don't know where they are. And there's just going to be a mixture of things. And so I think that's what strikes me. That's what kind of comes to mind when I think of this complexity and what that could look like and how to have an appreciation for it. It exists. I like
Yep.
that. Yeah.
Life is complex, complicated when we try and tamper with it and uh, simplify it, right? We become reductive and we try and kill the complexity and say, oh, no, 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 you just simply do this. You know how cliched we are in our thinking because we think with an accent and we speak with an accent. All of us do. It's like me saying to you, oh, Lydia, you have an accent, eh? You're a Joburger or a Cape Townian or an Eastern Cape person. So when we look at simple and complex, we need to develop an appreciation, a tolerance for complexity because life is complex. I'm a complex being. Just ask my wife and you will discover that very quickly that I'm not easy as easy as what I come across to you. sort of a freewheeler, laissez-faire, easy type person. But I think what can help us here is to think in terms of an illustration. All of us not know what coal is like, right? Coal is, wood that has been buried under high pressure or under some pressure, and it becomes charred and becomes what we call charcoal, right? And we can use coal because coal is carbon, and we can burn it and we can keep warm and we can braai the way we do here down in Gordons Bay, braai ever so often. But did you know that my body is also made of carbon, right? So is everything around me. So is a diamond. A diamond is also carbon. Now, how does a diamond differ from coal? Essentially, they are the same, but because of the high pressure on the one, it has created a complex thing called a gemstone, a precious stone that has come about under extremely high pressure conditions. So you have coal, simple, carbon, and you have a diamond, a complex. Both of them are made up of the same component, right? It's carbon. But the one you'd pay an arm and a leg for, and the other one you will pay a couple of rand for a 4 or 7 kilogram packet, a pack of coal, right? So simple and complex. But how do you navigate the complex? Well, this is where bonded triads come in. Now, a bonded triad is, we have bonded triads all around us. Time functions as a bonded triad. Past, present, future. So does the Trinity. The Trinity is a bonded triad. Father, Son, Spirit. So is water, H2O. It's a liquid, but it becomes a solid at freezing point, right? And at 100 degrees, it will boil and it becomes steam. There's a triad. Liquid, solid, gas. And you can race through tons of triads like this. And so when we have something that is simple, we also understand at the same time that that simple thing can be very complex. And when we inject a third component, which is clarity, right? The more complicated something is and I grapple with it, the clearer that thing becomes to me. But when I become reductive, right, I try to simplify it to such a point where it just disappears. And it's what the left hemisphere of the brain does. The left hemisphere constantly wants to lock into a singular detail and become analytical and analyze the thing to death, while the right hemisphere pans out and looks at the whole picture, the big picture, and keeps the big picture in front of our gaze. And so we must fight against this issue of becoming reductive, because we constantly want to simplify things and simplify life. Look at the complicated political decisions on the horizon now. For some of us, we're saying, oh, it's simple. They must just do this and this and this. And yet at the same time, those issues are so complicated because they have to balance so many things: the economy, climatic conditions, personal relationships, international games that they need to be playing. There's so much in there that they have to learn to navigate, to use your word again, Lydia, to navigate. It's so important to learn to navigate. So how does that strike you, Liz?
I think it's a question of how for me. How do you navigate? You say, you have to, instead of being reductive, get into, to gain clarity, you need to be in the complex. And for me, I'm thinking it's messy. Now that gets messy. So how do I gain clarity if it's messy and complex? How do I move through that and figure out where to go, what to do, or how to think, or where to place.
Right? There's always a risk. And you used a very interesting word, the word messy. Life is messy. Relationships are messy. Unless you want to live alone for the rest of your life. Marriages are messy. Right? Intercultural, inter-ethnic relationships, international relationships are messy things. And yet they are unavoidable. So I think one of the things that one needs to decide on is that there's risk involved. I am willing to take the risk to understand you as much as I can. Do I understand all of what my wife is about? No. It will take me millennia to do that. So for now, what I face, I need to take the risk of getting in there because I run the risk of misunderstanding if I don't. So to be willing to take the risk, I think that's a starting point. And a lot of us want risk-free living, right? Well, then just, be celibate for the whole of your life and live like an island and relationally die. Rather than take the risk, I will get married and I'm in this thing as a lifelong commitment and we will work through the messiness. So I would suggest, Lydia, that's one decision, maybe the first decision to make, to take the risk to navigate, which means get into the boat and start rowing, get into the boat and start sailing, get into the car and switch on that ignition. Switch on the ignition so that the car can start. And now I navigate. Is there anything you would add to that or take away from that?
No, I think I like the first step. It's getting going. It kind of, I remember a riddle that you posed, and I used that as part of my life orientation class. It was about what do you do with the fork in the road? I love
It's a
playing with that. And the
koan.
answer
It's a
was,
koan.
that
What
answer
was the
was you
answer?
take
Can
it.
you remember?
Yeah, and I remember just like you take it because I used it so many times, and the kids would laugh, and I'd be like, exactly like
Yeah.
you're saying, that first step of make the choice, make a decision. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? Let's get in this boat. Let's get involved. Let's, let's make that step. And I still have that question of the clarity element. How do I know that it's
Okay.
clear? But I think, that makes sense to,
Well,
I need to engage here. So
yeah, this is a start, Lydia. What I would suggest is let's pick up in our next discussion second and third pointers that could help us along the way. The first one is make the decision to take the risk. When you get to the fork in the road, that's a koan. A koan is a rattling riddle. Your bones rattle because what's the right answer when you get to a fork in the road? Right? Fork. And all that is intended. A child would say, well, you eat with a fork. Another more enlightened person would say, you either go left or you go right. And my comment has always been, take it. Well, is it left or right? I would say, make a decision. Take it. And so let's talk through a second and a third step that can help us as we navigate complexity, whether it's education, whether it's our marital lives, our parental lives, our work lives, our leisure, whatever life we are engaging in. Because I think this is very crucial as we assess each other's or people's growth stage for where they are at in life. Lydia, thank you for your time. We look forward to the next exciting episode. If all things being equal, tomorrow, same time, same place, on this, your fifth connection. Thank you for joining us, Lydia.
pleasure. Bye.